So talking about Jupiter moving into Sagittarius, it's going to enter Sagittarius November the 5th. And on this video, I'm going to be talking about the social, political implications of that. I'm going to trace this transit recently through Scorpio, some general ideas. Also that Jupiter is going to be joining Ketu. This is also opposite Rahu and Gemini. So there's a lot of the Gemini and Mercury, Jupiter stuff going on. These are themes that I've been talking about for months, for much of this year. And we're seeing these things start to shift now. And I'm going to just dedicate this to mainly things like a lot of the social, political things that we're seeing in the news. And I just put that out there because, you know, for those of you who get triggered by, political talk, especially if you don't like me, being honest about things like that have to do with Trump or anything like that, I'm going to be honest about it. But, if you don't like that kind of thing, then you're probably not going to like this because I'm going to be honest about, crimes or whatever other things that might be happening. And I'm going to be factual, but also not just about that, though. There's all kinds of protests all over the world now. There's protests in, Chile and Hong Kong. There's all kinds of shifting and changing and uprisings all around the world as we look to restore a sense of justice. And, I talked about these things, earlier this year, especially when I mentioned that it really started a lot with the transit of Rahu going through Gemini. That really began this, sort of full-on frontal assault of really wanting to get at the facts and get at the truth. And I'll take you back to when that happened. Again, those who watch the news in the U.S., Rahu went into Gemini right as the Mueller report was released, like exactly when it happened, end of March. Exactly when it was released, that's when Rahu went into Gemini, okay? And again, since then, there's been a lot of stuff going on, but as I said at the time, it was going to be a transit where the truth was going to come out. We're going to get the data, the facts. Let's see the data in the transcripts, communications, leaks, emails, the data, the communication is going to come out and show us the truth of what's been going on, the facts, not just a lot of, hyperbole and beliefs and accusations of, fake news or conspiracy theories or this kind of thing or that kind of thing, whatever you think about that, and your beliefs are going to be challenged. That includes my beliefs, everybody's beliefs. And by the way, not to get, again, too over the fence about the politics, but I'm not this raving liberal like some people think. I'm very libertarian in a lot of ways. I want all of them out of my hair, but I'm also, have a, sense of, calling out what is true and what's real. And people that, again, this whole thing, if people believe in the conspiracy theories like Q, already someone's asking a question about Q and all this stuff, we're going to see the truth about what's going on with Jupiter going into Sagittarius. We're going to see the beliefs about, we're going to see the data come out, and it will be harder and harder for people to keep maintaining all of their false beliefs. And because the data and the truth will come out, okay? So we can see in the chart here, this, the current transits now with at the end of October, we see that Jupiter is at 2850. It's right at this, what's called Gandanta point. It's going right over these last degrees of Scorpio, between Scorpio and Sagittarius. 1 second. And you see what's going to happen in the next week or so. What's going on here? Birth chart. Oh, step forward. Yeah. So you see it moves closer and closer to Sagittarius until it finally goes into Sagittarius on the 4th, but actually the 5th is the first day that we would see it. By the way, I want to put this note here you can get this. Let me do this. I almost forgot. Jupiter in Sagittarius web class for all 12 signs and historical. I just put a link here where you can sign up for this. Oh, wait a second. I almost sent the wrong link. Let me do this a second. It's right here, because this is for you to register for a web class. It's free, but in it I will go over the history of Jupiter in Sagittarius, Jupiter as it goes through Sagittarius, especially the last few times that it went through, and also what it will mean for each of the 12 signs. I'm also going to show you how to figure out how these transits work for each of the 12 signs, and show you how this, show you also a lot of the cosmology of this section of the sky. This is where the plane of the galaxy runs, and it's a very transformative section of the sky. And again, it's where we both can conjure up a lot of new beliefs, but also find true inspiration and true, knowledge and wisdom, especially since Ketu and Saturn have been going through Sagittarius, and especially Ketu going through Sagittarius for the last, since March of this year. We will have there will be a lot of scrutiny being brought to our beliefs. This is why a lot of our beliefs, which is Sagittarius, are really getting shattered right now. Our beliefs, which is the Sagittarius area of life, are really getting shattered and focused and concentrated. And Jupiter, when it goes into Sagittarius, brings a sense of justice. In fact, there are two things that bring justice. There are two main signs. One is Jupiter, who is the planet, and also Sagittarius. But the other one is the sign of Libra. And notice how the last couple of days, for example, certainly in the US, we have, our Congress, which has been batting back and forth these ideas of impeachment and all kinds of things. They just announced today they're going to open up this formal vote on impeachment, and this sense of justice started right after the new moon in Libra. It's literally the scales, and justice is supposed to be a balancing act. And so the reason that they opened up the formal impeachment inquiry is this fairness issue. Because, again, it hadn't been unfair, but just to make sure that both sides have an opportunity, like to call witnesses or to do other things, they opened it up formally. So again, this is the quality of justice that's related to Libra, which is the fairness part. The fairness part of justice is Libra. The law part, which is the righteous part, is related to Sagittarius and Jupiter. So there needs to be equal justice under the law. Justice, Libra, law, Sagittarius, and Jupiter. So again, it's those laws that give us a common vision. And it's already been mentioned. I was just about to say this as well. And Nanak said, America just admitted to Armenian genocide. This is also something that just happened today, maybe even just about an hour ago, is one of the congressmen just introduced a formal resolution to recognize the Armenian genocide. Again, this is just a sense of global justice. You said America just admitted to it. Armenian genocide was the Turks. So they're acknowledging that what the Turks did was Armenian genocide, not that Americans committed Armenian genocide, just to be clear. They didn't want to acknowledge that before because the Turks are an ally. And so admitting or wanting to pass this edict that acknowledges the Armenian genocide is kind of like a thumb in the eye of Turkey. So anyway, this justice is definitely on the rise. And we see that people all around the world are looking for justice now. We've been having protracted protests in Hong Kong, also in other countries, I think Lebanon even, I think Chile, in other countries around the world. There's a lot of uprisings right now. And this is a big, issue right now. Now, again, and ask the question, it's kind of obvious, but it says, will they have psychological stress when the truth is not what they thought, or will they continue to ignore the truth and save the fragile ego? Well, don't just say they, you also. It's everyone. Everyone's got to get out of their judgment, including you and me and everybody, right? Because, again, people, one of the biggest things, and this is how I feel about this, is that the system itself is broken. We're going to see hypocrisy. We've already seen it. Look, and who knows? They are a collection of people, of individuals. What we can see astrologically is the issues coming up. And this means all of us individually and collectively need to look at our beliefs and our fragile ego, and how our fragile ego is attached to a bunch of beliefs. They're all getting shattered right now. And there's a lot of things that are playing out right now to really do that. So let me get back to the chart again and show this nature here of this transit of Jupiter through Sagittarius. Again, it starts November the 5th is the first full day. And, before that time, and in fact, in a couple days, as I record this, Mercury turns retrograde. So Mercury is going to turn retrograde on October 31st. So right before November, Mercury turns retrograde. I just did a November update where I talk about that. You should check that out, the November 2019 update. But then Jupiter going through Mula, and I talked about this before, and I don't know if people remember, but I talked about especially the impeachment and the transits of Jupiter and Saturn. And I have Trump's chart here, and I want to look at this. And let me do this. Change this screen. Okay. So this is the current placement in the sky, and this is Trump's chart, just to look at the timing of impeachment and what might happen. And I said that it would be better if the process was extended later, because they kept talking about doing it fast and hurrying it up and getting it done quickly. And that's not what's going to happen, at least by the timeline I said, is that it would be better if they were conducting like the trial and the spectacle into next year, at least for a sense of justice to be carried out. So you see why I said that is because of the aspects by transit. First of all, Saturn is planetary aspecting his Jupiter. Saturn at 21 is aspecting in the sky his Jupiter over here. So if we go forward, you'll see that in the next, you want to watch this. Whoops. You want to watch these degrees of Saturn go up around 23, 24 in the sky, because this is each day. You see Saturn keeps rising, 22, 23. You can see how his impeachment is coming. This is like the end of November. This is November 28. Saturn is 2338, right on top of his natal Jupiter. So they're going to be having impeachment hearings at this time, I'm pretty sure. There will be impeachment by the time we're at the end of November. There will be public hearings probably at that time. And I said, because we can see these transits, that Trump is due for a boon. He's due to get a boon, meaning a blessing, because when Jupiter goes into the fifth house, or goes into Sagittarius, it's the fifth house from his Leo ascendant, right? And it's aspecting over here. So he's going to get an aspect to his ascendant and his Mars in late November, early December. So again, this will be public hearings. So I think what might happen is that at first the hearings might go good, or there might be some sort of, it might not be as bad as it seems. But then after, and again, what could happen is he could get a boon, and it could really just show that the rhetoric changes, and the prevailing wisdom, like let's say in the country or certainly in his party, is, well, what he did was certainly not something that he should have done, but it's not impeachable. This is what I think is likely to happen. I don't know, but that's what's likely to happen. And I think this is what we will be seeing, especially as it grinds out through this year with the public hearings. But what I think, and again, I think that will go through December, through much of December, with Jupiter in a pretty close aspect to his ascendant, that it may look better for Trump than we might think. And again, these public hearings, though, and again, that's a little bit against what I would say if I didn't know astrology. Because if I didn't know astrology, my feeling, and it's still my feeling overall, is that it's going to be very damning ultimately. And again, it might mean that he's not removed, but him and the Republicans and the whole apparatus that's trying to normalize all of the crazy that we've been seeing, that all of them acknowledge that was obvious in this sort of interaction that happened between him and Ukraine, and all of these ambassadors coming forward and whatnot, this smear campaign that's been going on against the process, all this stuff that's been happening. You would think that as soon as they started putting on public hearing, which is what they've been, which is what they're going to do, that it would just be very, very difficult. I think it's not going to be as bad as it seems, at least at the beginning. But as it drags on, and this is what I said earlier, as it drags on and Jupiter gets closer to Ketu and Saturn, which, Saturn will have already gone over his Jupiter, we might start to see, especially through the middle of December and into next year, more damning revelations come forth. And I think as the process drags out further and Jupiter and Ketu get closer together, it'll be more damning and more damaging. Now, again, I don't really know the timing of how this is going to go because it's all speculative right now. But the big thing to understand that I'm saying right now, especially as it relates to things like impeachment and justice, the first thing to understand, aside from my predictions and all of that, like what I'm predicting, whether it's going to go this way or not, is just notice the incredible timing here. And also notice the power of the sidereal zodiac, because this is all sidereal timing. Jupiter going into Sagittarius, passing right over this as Jupiter enters sidereal Sagittarius. We start this impeachment, this formal vote, right after the new moon in Libra. Libra and Sagittarius are the two signs of justice, the legal system, and it's right at that time. Because again, remember in tropical, that's not what it is. Again, I'm not saying one's better. I'm not saying tropical doesn't work, but I'm showing you and telling you this is why I use sidereal zodiac. This is why you're seeing it. You see it in real time all the time, but I just want you to understand this as well. This is why, because you can see right as Jupiter is passing over the sidereal placement between Scorpio and Sagittarius, we're getting impeachment. Now, again, if you want to even bring in the fact that, as some people say, Sagittarius is the first house of the U.S. chart, I'm not sure about that, but that would be even, a little bit more. But even just seeing Jupiter pass through this Mula, this Jeshta Mula Gandanta, where things are transformative and shaky. By the way, let's also look at something else. Trump just got a huge boon. And let's give him credit. Jupiter went over his moon. What was the big boon that he just got? Killing al-Baghdadi. It was a huge thing for him, for his administration, at least for him to say that, yes, we got this terrorist. That his administration can, take credit for killing the head of ISIS. This was a huge boon. of course, and again, I'm just going to be honest, but of course, Trump can't even get a boon because he has to ruin everything, because then he's got to go out and brag and make up a bunch of stuff that's not true and sound like a lunatic in front of the world with dogs, and I call it a canine, I call it a dog, and just his constant in giving away secrets and leaking top security apparatus, operational details that he shouldn't do. Again, he can't do anything without ruining it and making it a moment to watch his lack of integrity and understanding and wisdom and grace, and he's got to brag about it. And again, all of this stuff that just makes everybody go, ugh. But aside from that, as far as things go, this was a huge boon. And we can see this boon. I was wondering what was going to happen when Jupiter went over his moon. I'm glad it's something that the whole country benefited from. Because one of the things I said earlier in a web class is I was saying that, when Jupiter goes into Sagittarius, Trump was going to get a boon because it's going to aspect his Mars and ascendant. Okay. But again, you can also see that his moon and Ketu are right there, and Jupiter went over his moon and he got a huge boon because they got al-Baghdadi. Again, it was hard to see what the boon would be with all of his stuff that's been coming, all of his legal trouble. Because we also see that as well if we want to look at his chart. Jupiter going over his moon Ketu in the 4th house shows all this legal trouble. Jupiter going over his debilitated moon, his 12th lord. Again, and it's legal trouble with a foreign government. 12th house lord, foreign stuff. And again, it was trying to extort and pressure all this Scorpio stuff, all this hidden Scorpio, kind of like acting like a mobster, right? So again, we see this happening. So as Jupiter goes into Sagittarius, there and it continues. This is like the 5th. Again, you can look at his ascent. His Mars is 3 degrees. So again, this is I don't know if they'll start the public hearings yet. There might, again, watch and see what happens after November 5th. There'll be some kind of a boon. I think what might happen is there might be, maybe someone will come out to, maybe someone that we haven't heard from yet, like maybe a Bolton or one of these people will come out and perhaps present some information that might seem like it's exonerating or that it's softening. Honestly, to be honest with you, I just have to say it could also be something that is more damaging as well. He could also, in this case as well, especially because Ketu and also because Jupiter is about justice and Saturn is also there and Saturn is also aspecting his Jupiter. It could also be that when Jupiter goes into Sagittarius and this boon comes, it might be, again, almost like a boon for the country, again, like we just saw. We just saw that Trump's boon, the boon that he got with Jupiter going over his moon, was that we captured a terrorist, or that we killed the head of ISIS, not that he got some personal benefit. So it's entirely possible that when Jupiter goes into Sagittarius, the boon that Trump gets perhaps maybe is a boon for the country, where maybe some other really difficult disclosures come forth. Again, we would look at this kind of thing by analyzing his dashas as well. And we can see right now he's in Jupiter, Saturn, Ketu, which again, he's going to go into Jupiter, Saturn, Venus. And Venus, Venus is the ruler of his Rahu and Sun. It's also in the 12th house. So let's just wait and see what happens with that. I don't want to get too far in the weeds with his chart, but I just wanted to, as much as anything, I show these events. Again, some people put all these predictions on the line. They do this so they can make all these predictions. I show the general predictions so we can see what's happening, because I know this is going to be shown. I know that these things are going to be shown. Whether I predict the right or the wrong part, frankly, in my opinion, is not that important. I know I'm getting the timing right of what the energies are, and I want you to see that as well, because these transits are so they're so immediate. So again, this Jupiter then is going to go through Sagittarius. It's going to get closer. And again, because this is particular, video, I'm talking more about, not just U.S. justice or whatever, but justice in general. We're going to see, starting in November, after November 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, we're going to start to see a more urgent call for justice. I think that also includes, like, for example, it could be some more unrest. Again, and places where there are, where there is a lot of unrest now, like in Hong Kong and other places, they could explode, especially as Jupiter gets closer to Ketu. I'm going to talk about these things more in the web class that I linked to. That web class that I linked to. Oh, you said you can't see the chart. Sorry. Okay, here's the chart. Sorry about that. Okay, there's the chart. But I'm going to be talking about these things more in that web class that I talked about. But yeah, so you can see the chart here now, and I just went over the transits of Saturn aspecting his natal Jupiter, Jupiter going into Sagittarius. If you missed it, I was talking about the about this transit of Jupiter over his moon that just happened when they caught. You see, Jupiter was just going over his moon when they caught the terrorist or whatever. I don't know when you stop seeing the chart, but so this will be a time really for all the people to transition from this Jupiter in Scorpio, which is being triggered by all the conspiracy theories and all of the again, the last year and a half, 2 years since Trump's been president, Jupiter was in Virgo and then Libra and then Scorpio. And again, we've just seen the rise of more of the conspiracy theories. And, again, that includes like the QAnon and whatnot. One of the things we are going to see, and again, regardless of whether it's very hard to predict with politics, especially politicians, like with Trump and these politicians that are so self-interested, aside from who is the winner and who is the loser, the Republican or the Dems, the main thing to see is that, and again, I think it's very important that justice be served in the sense that even if we don't get the result that actually the majority of the country wants, even at this point, if not later, once we start seeing hearings and listening to what happens, and he either gets impeached or censored or something, it's going to show the hypocrisy, the disgusting system that is keeping everybody attached to a corrupt system that needs to be destroyed. And it does need to be destroyed and changed because it's corrupt with money and influence and power, and people don't care about what's right. They're willing to let someone like Trump lie and trample all over what they know is unacceptable. They know it's unacceptable what's been happening. And again, if you don't think it's unacceptable to like be gaming the system this way and getting wealthy off of the office and trying to, pressure foreign leaders in order to get dirt on your political opponents, what's going to happen is when the public hearings do start, you're going to see these professional, lifelong, public servants. They work in the government. They've been in a diplomatic corps for decades. Come forth. They're apolitical. And we're going to see in front of us that these people have integrity and honor. And I think it's going to be very hard, even for the smarmy Republicans who've done nothing but try to protect Trump against everything because of their own political skin. It's going to be harder and harder for them to maintain this because I think there's going to be a public shift. Right now, it seems 50-50. It was like that with Richard Nixon. Those of us who are old enough to remember, I wasn't that old, but I remember the Watergate hearings when I was a kid. But when they started the open hearings, it was, I think, people that were in favor of impeachment was about 25% once the hearings started. Now, those hearings went on for a long time. They went on for about a year. That's not going to happen here. But by the end of it, and all of that information came out, it changed, because right now it's all just news. But once you start seeing this in front of you, front and center every day, that's going to be very different. It's going to be very different to see, for example, I think it was a lieutenant colonel that testified behind closed doors today. By the way, they do it behind closed doors. It's called a grand jury. There's been nothing untoward about that. Again, it's just been playing politics, the Republicans, terribly. This is a fact-gathering mission, just like the Republicans did when they were in charge and holding like Benghazi hearings and all this stuff behind the scenes. So you hold it behind the scenes, and then you have the public hearings. That's always the way it has been. So not to get in the weeds about that, but the thing is, what's going to shift and why it's different is Jupiter going into Sagittarius is now going to bring it out in the, here it is, folks. Now you see it. That's the difference. Jupiter and Scorpio, who knows? Who knows? Those Democrats are doing, Republicans are doing that. QAnon, conspiracy, deep state, which, by the way, I'll talk about in a minute, because I also talked about this. I said this was also going to be investigated, and it has been. In fact, since the last time I talked about this, Attorney General Barr opened up a formal criminal investigation into the deep state, the Russia hoax, and all of that stuff. And Bill Barr has been going around countries in the world to other governments, trying to get other governments to rat out our intelligence services to try to prove that the investigation into Trump and the 2016 election was a deep state hoax. So this is what our Attorney General is doing in the United States right now. So we'll see what happens with that. Probably all the QAnon people are going, see, they're going to finally get her, and they're going to get Hillary, finally going to get Hillary. By the way, the last thing I'm going to say about this, it was buried in the news a couple weeks ago. It should have been front news and center, because all we heard about for about a year and a half was but her emails. Every time Trump would do something crazy, they would have to try to play it 50-50. You want to know what I hate about the media? It's not that there's a liberal bias, because there really isn't. There's a money bias. They want to sell advertising, and one of the ways they do it is they make everything 50-50. If we talk about Trump getting up and lying and being totally uninformed, we got to find something to talk about Clinton too. Her emails, the email scandal, which was just nothing really. Finally, do you know Trump's Justice Department has been investigating Hillary Clinton's emails the entire time he's been in office. And you know what they just found? Completely absolved of any wrongdoing. There was nothing there. There never was anything there. So people who have these conspiracy theories about Hillary Clinton and Clinton Foundation and all of this stuff, you know, Uranium One and Benghazi and all this stuff, guess what? Hillary Clinton, for the last several years, has been completely savaged with a total hoax. People standing up at rallies and chanting, lock her up, for an email scandal. Again, no penalty for this. They just found out. Again, they've been investigating this now for 4 years. Talk about a witch hunt. Good Lord. And the Trump's Justice Department cleared her and said, there's nothing there. Again, we do still have a system that works. We still have a Justice Department. The reason they did that, it doesn't matter how corrupt you are. If you're going to actually bring charges and say, yes, they did something that was illegal, or they did something that was even, it doesn't even have to be illegal, even inadvertently compromising state secrets or some other kind of thing that they were talking about that she deserved to be locked up for, which, by the way, you can't lock somebody up for that unless there's intent, criminal intent, which there, of course, wasn't. The whole time, it was a total abomination. And by the way, did you notice the karma that just came back? Did you just hear Trump was getting, they were chanting lock him up at a baseball game the other day? Again, notice these things. I notice, because we're seeing the karma and the justice starting to get evened out. This is what I'm talking about. So again, this should have been blasted on every news station. Hillary Clinton exonerated, her emails, her damn emails was nothing. Talk about a witch hunt. You heard about that as if it was just the same thing. Well, Trump has lied 15 times today, and Hillary's email. Again, like as if it was the same thing. Anyway, put that aside, but you want to understand these are the things that I'm talking about that we're going to see shifting. And we're already seeing it, if you've been watching, in some of the things I'm talking about. Again, to recap, the Justice Department is investigating this deep state hoax. So all of you who think QAnon is right, it's a deep state hoax. We're going to find out that Hillary is a child molester and there's the whole thing and John F. Kennedy is going to be reborn or whatever the conspiracy theory is. Let's see. They're investigating it. And I said this about a month ago, where the truth is going to come out. So there's going to be that version of reality and the version of reality that the rest of us live in, which is seeing what we obviously see, which is a president who is unprepared, dishonest, and his mishandling and abuse of power of the office is catching up with him. And all of these people who are not political, they're apolitical. See, the thing about the Mueller investigation, it was all politics. It was all advocates. You had people that were for Trump who had a vested interest in not cooperating. They're trying to do that now, and it just looks desperate because the witnesses and the actual people that have come forth they're just doing their job. They're not really political at all. So all of these smears to try to smear them and all this, it's not going to work, especially once we start getting in the public. So again, what we can understand with this shift from Jupiter in Scorpio to Jupiter in Sagittarius, which again, sidereal transit, is it's taking it out of all of this. We don't know. Jupiter in Scorpio could be conspiracy, could be this, could be that, to Jupiter in Sagittarius, which is like, here it is. You want to know what it is? Here it is. Here's what's happening. They say justice dies in the dark. I don't remember who said it, but Scorpio is the dark. It's literally a hole, and Jupiter is righteousness and truth. And so this is the shifting that's happening, right? It's moving from Sagittarius and the being manipulated, being able, finding hope in some dark fantasy, right? Or feeling that darkness, even those who have been watching what's been happening, like myself and many others, and we just can't believe not just that this guy gets away with this stuff, but that no one is standing up for the truth. All these Republicans just rubber stamp anything he does. Again, if it would have been Obama had done, I don't even want to say half, 1/1,000,000th of what this guy has done and said and gotten away with, we would have never heard the end of it. Where this is going to be much harder to maintain. This is what I'm saying. Let's see them maintain this in a couple months when Jupiter is already in Sagittarius early next year. If it drags out further and further, it gets closer to Ketu. And we've already seen these diplomats speaking, and that you see they're honorable with integrity, and it's clear what happened. So this is definitely a big part of what's going on. And so what we've already seen, and I've already noticed with several other, there was let me see here. Well, I don't want to get into that. So let me just go back and look and see some of the comments here. Let's see how much Trump hating I'm getting here. Exactly. The Dems fact-finding mission now because Justice Department refused to perform the investigation. So yeah, exactly. So I'm happy to get into it because I find this stuff fascinating. The reason the Democrats are holding like a grand jury, like investigating it, in private is because, for example, in Watergate, just a little civics lesson, all of those investigations they're always done privately. They were done by Jaworski and the first guy. I see his name, but I can't remember. But investigations are always private because you don't bring people before cameras to take a deposition. You get people's stories. Then it's just like a trial or an investigation. Investigations are always in private. And by the way, again, the whole thing, you see these Democrats are acting, these Republicans are they're acting lawless, breaking into the private meeting the other day, Half of them had access to the meeting, acting as though Republicans have no access. It's simply not true. There's half Republican, half Democrat in the it's basically a grand jury in the investigation. They all get to ask questions. Again, it's absolute lies. It's just pure lying. That's all. It's just absolute lying and trying to lie to the people because they don't have a good story, because Trump looks really, really guilty of some serious crimes, which could definitely get him impeached. That is not even a beginning of a exaggeration. The framers of the Constitution had in mind this exact thing when they talked about high crimes and misdemeanors was literally turning to a foreign country to influence our elections. That was literally the crime they had in mind. Literally. It's not even, I mean, this is not even hard. And he clearly did it. And everyone around him, when it happened, their head exploded. They're like, whoa, what are you doing? Again, maybe he didn't know he was doing it or whatever. But again, at some point, that's not an excuse. I think what could happen, it could come out that he did it with China. I think that's a high probability. We might see that. I think the longer it goes on, this is why I said I think they should do these hearings until they're done, because the tentacles could go very far. We could have Pence and certainly Pompeo and Barr, all of them could be implicated, and we shouldn't find this out. It's enough. It's enough of this crap. For the majority of the country, it's enough. And this is what Jupiter and Sagittarius is like, all right, that's enough. And we're going to see it. And they should take their time and be thorough. And I think once they start getting into it, that's what's going to wind up happening. But, this is just, so Holly McCorkle is definitely not on board. What did he do? The leakers would have already said something. What? There's transcript of the call of him doing it, and there are people, professionals that have been around for decades that said this was inappropriate. Plus, why are they not even investigating? There was a whistleblower complaint with a protocol, a chain of protocol. Investigate it, Holly, okay? Honestly, just investigate. Investigate how the government works, how this stuff works, instead of what someone is telling you or something. I don't know. So Hillary, China, he owns a bank in China, but Hillary and Biden got to China. Okay. So anyway, Anna said he confessed here. Yeah, he even confessed. He said he did it. He said he did it. He said, yeah, I did it. What's wrong? In fact, China, why don't you do it too? These are crimes, Holly. It is not legal to have another government investigate a U.S. citizen. That's not what a president should be doing. He might investigate you. We can't have a president asking another government to investigate one of our citizens, especially if it's his the opponent that he thought he was going to be running against in a presidential campaign. And it's not because he's interested in corruption, because he can't name anybody who's corrupt in these countries. So again, it's better to not get so far down that. So anyway, as we go forward with this, with this transit, what's going to happen is Jupiter's going to go through pretty quick. You'll see he goes straight through, and he even goes straight into like this is oh, let me make it go ahead like month. So you can see this is early January, and then it gets very close to Saturn. This is early February. Okay, so he went retrograde back, but you'll see that Jupiter then pokes his head into Capricorn and then goes retrograde. Oh yeah, this is in sorry, let me get the dates right. Yeah, so around the end of March, Jupiter pokes his head in Capricorn and then starts to go retrograde after that. So I think by then so between now and March, basically, Jupiter's going to go all the way through Sagittarius. And this is where I think we're going to see whatever the justice is that's served. Again, I'm not totally convinced he's going to be removed from office, not even close. But we're going to see the way these people behave. We're going to see it. We're going to know, unless people want to just keep their head in the sand, that Trump is definitely this type of person. And it's going to be hard, again, for those people that just want to maintain that he's here, the hero defending us against deep state or whatever it is. All this stuff is going to come out. It's going to be harder and harder to maintain whatever that sort of cult-like behavior is that people have with Trump. I'm sorry to put it that way, but that's what it is. Of course, many of them will certainly hang on to it, but it'll be harder to hang on to for sure. Especially between once he enters in November and then early March. We're going to see the sense of hope and purpose and truth come out. And the other place the other transit that's going to be very important is when we get around like early next year. You see Jupiter and Ketu are like within 1 degree of each other, 2 degrees of each other, the end of this year and early next year. Again, it could be a heck of a Christmas. Wait and see what happens. I'm going to say this too, and I said it before, but I'm not certain that he won't resign at some point. Again, what happened with Nixon is that he resigned. Eventually, the Republicans said, resign or you're going to get impeached. Because once this trial starts in the Senate, we're going to vote to impeach you. They already know before they start opening an impeachment inquiry. They already know. Because they've already gotten the evidence. And so I wouldn't be surprised. In fact, it might even be the end of this year or early next year. There could be this could be one of the most, this is going to be where it's going to be the most intense, I think, not just for him to hang on, but for this is where the pressure is going to be really like, okay, this is really what happened. Because then K2 and Jupiter are going to be completely focused at that point. And again, it's K2 and Sagittarius with Jupiter. It's like unmistakable. This is what we see. This is what it means. And literally, it also means this is what it could mean for our country if we don't do something about this. And so I'll put it in that way as well, that this could really be a time when a sense of conscience above party or whatever it is happens. And those Republicans who have been like, okay, I can tolerate a lot, but this is too much, you could see that flip. So I definitely wouldn't be surprised if the end of this year into early next year. Again, it's hard to say exactly when. It takes a long time. But what I'm showing you is this Jupiter K2 being very close. This is definitely something to watch for. I know that's what's going to happen as we get into, I said this in my previous video, the middle end of December into early next year. Huge in that regard. Now there are other situations in the world. Again, I'm focused on U.S. politics. It's a big thing in our world. I live in the U.S. But again, we also see this sort of sense of wanting justice all around the world. A lot in Hong Kong. And by the way, notice what's happened recently with China and Hong Kong and the NBA. That whole big dust up that happened in the NBA, of course, the Basketball Association, where one of the owners tweeted something in support of Hong Kong, I believe it was. And China said, the Chinese government and Chinese state TV or whatever came out and said, we're going to stop supporting the NBA. And there was this whole big blow up about, in the NBA. where again, this politics and the ramifications of politics and people, and people's, trade-offs and this political expediency. These are the things, again, we do it as a country to accommodate China because they're a trading partner. Again, not to mention the things that we've done in the Middle East now, pulling our troops out of our strategic alliance that was helping the Kurds. Now we're not in that field anymore, but we are maintaining a position in the oil fields to sort of protect the oil fields. There's a couple reasons for that. I think there's been a lot of heat brought to that. One of the reasons is to keep it out of the hands of ISIS, possibly. But anyway, but again, all of these situations of people striving for justice, we're going to start seeing the truth perhaps really just explode like it hasn't. Brexit is another huge thing, of course. They have, I don't remember when the referendum is, but they have another vote upcoming on that very soon. Whether or not to extend, I don't remember how many months it was. I'd be better on world politics, but U.S. politics is so crazy right now. But this is, so much to keep our mind on in the U.S. But so the big thing I wanted to really, kind of lock down in this class or this video was just this huge shift that we're seeing from Jupiter in Scorpio and all of the hidden agendas. And again, this also includes, look at what these people have been doing. Look at all of this hidden stuff. Look at all of the backroom deals that have been going on. And Jupiter going into Sagittarius. Again, one of the things I think is very possible, just like we're seeing now, is there's going to be so many more disclosures that could come out. Again, we could easily find out that there could be, there could be 2 or 3 more, State Department officials that were on calls where he was talking to China or whatever, saying, hey, wait a minute, I just got to say, it wasn't just this. This has happened several times, or who knows? Again, we haven't heard from Bolton. Once we get a formal impeachment and start doing public hearings, I want to see them haul Pompeo and Barr and Bolton and these other people as well. Pence. I want to see them all in front of the people. Under the penalty of indictment and corroborating evidence, I want to hear from all of them. And this is why the impeachment hearings and the legal impeachment process needs to be formalized, because then there is no stonewalling. You come or you're in jail, and they need to enforce that stuff. And I think they will. I think at some point the people deserve to have this done accurately and correctly. And this is also what you're going to see. You're going to see a huge backlash. We're already starting to see it against these lawmakers who are letting this president in this process just say, oh, you're going to subpoena us? Screw you. No, this is just unacceptable at this point. Jupiter and Sagittarius, especially as it joins K2, Saturn is there. It's like, we've had enough. It's enough of this. So again, not just here, but all around the world, we might see the Hong Kong protests get more violent. You might see China really crack down, or what might happen, and I wouldn't be surprised if China became more tolerant and you saw some concessions being made. Again, whether I'm right or wrong about that isn't relevant, because it could go either way, and you'd have to look at China's chart, blah, blah, blah. It's complicated to do that stuff. But it can go either way. There are also protests, I believe, in Chile against their oppressive government. And other places, there's so much longing for justice and a correction of a lot of the things from the past. I see this Brexit as being very closely aligned as well. And Boris Johnson being very much a kind of Trumpian figure, and even looks like his little brother. And Brexit came as a kind of outlier that has just disrupted England and the UK. So perhaps we'll see a sense of justice and reparation there as well. Again, I don't know the politics of the situation as well as I would need to say much more, but we're seeing all the issues coming together in this way. So other people are, I'll go back and look at some questions. Wait a minute. Someone said there will be general elections in the UK on the 12th of December. The Parliament voted for that today. Okay, you see, today. Look at these shifts. By the way, let me just put, again, this Jupiter and Sagittarius web class for all 12 signs and the historical implications. I just put a link there. You can go to that and just register. I'll be doing it. You'll be able to get on the web class and just sign up for it in the next couple of days. So, right, there we go. So thank you for telling me that. So the general elections in the UK, the 12th of December. The Parliament voted for that today. Let's just go and look at 12th of December. We already looked. Jupiter will have gone into Sagittarius by then. 12th of December. So Jupiter, by that time, so this is December 12th. That's a Thursday. And Jupiter is 8 degrees. So it's gone past. And look, I don't know as much about British politics by any means, but I think, again, what this signals, I'll just say this in a general sense, is this Jupiter in Sagittarius is a return to justice. You want to see it in this regard. It's not just like, well, we're going to be triggered, we're going to be this, we're going to blah, blah, blah. No, it's actually a reassertion of something that feels just and that's correct and that's righteous and that's right. And this, Jupiter's had a tough transit through Virgo, Libra, and then Scorpio the last several years. Sagittarius, he's back in his own place. So I think we're going to see a corrective process where where whichever party can best get this through will be established. And you can see that, again, the Jupiter Ketu is quite close. Even Venus, Saturn are close. So Venus also gives some cooperation. Look at the date here too. It's what is it? It's Pratipad. Okay. So I wonder if it's the full moon. It's probably on the full moon, because this is 5 o'clock on the 12th in the U.S. So that's many hours after. So it's on the full moon. I'll make this chart for UK birth data. So you see, even in the UK, let's say this is at 5. Yeah, so it's right after the full moon. If I go back even hours, yeah, so it's happening with on the day of the full moon, at least that morning, that sunrise or whatever. Yeah, it's the full moon day, or yeah, so it's right after the full moon. Yeah, the exact tithi would start after sunrise. So anyway, but you see it's happening right. Notice these big lunation cycles. So that was just, I guess, pulled out of somewhere, that date. But again, it's interesting to find these things out. So this is when they're going to have it with the sun in Scorpio and the moon in Taurus. That's actually moon in Taurus structure, right? So that bodes well. I hope it works out for Great Britain and Europe. Again, I have a feeling that we're going to see a corrective process start to happen. This is my overall prediction for Jupiter going through Sagittarius. A sense of justice put forth amidst the madness and lunacy of being manipulated and gaslit by crazy lunatics for the last several years. Sorry, but if you're in the cult, maybe you don't see it that way, but the rest of us do. And we're worn out by this absolute aberrant nutcase who's dragging us through his crazy life and his crazy ungrounded mind and his the Twitter presidency. Never could we ever imagine that someone would behave this way as a president of the United States. So at least on our level, this is what we've all been dragged through. And again, if you're in the cult, and I'm sorry, I'm going to say cult because people act like cult members. They've lost. They're not acting like rational people. No one else would think that this is, oh, this is cool. Somebody doesn't know what they're doing. Again, he can't even announce the death of a terrorist without just turning it into a complete nutty sideshow. These are sobering times. And the president can't even take a win without going out and saying, congratulations to our wonderful troops and this and that and this. No, he's got to turn it into this Obama this and that, and it's bigger than the best. And it was a dog, a canine. I call it a dog. And just turn it into like crazy grandpa circus for the whole world to go, good Lord. And, people, oh, it's great. It's great. Stop saying bad things about him. Come on. Let's get out of the insanity, And again, Jupiter going through Sagittarius is like, it's going to be like, this is really what's been happening. And, again, it looked like the thing with Brexit as well. It was like I don't remember who was it. I don't remember. I don't remember the prime minister at the time said, well, let's have a vote on it. And it's like, oh, we never thought this was going to happen. And now they've been grappling with this. So my prediction with Jupiter going through Sagittarius, as much as there's been so much just disarray and legal disruption, and it's going to return a lot of things back to a sense of, what feels like there's a justice. See, one of the things more than anything else, and I don't speak for everybody by any means, but one of the things that upsets people more even than whether he gets impeached or not is we need there to be some accountability at some point. There needs to be some justice. We cannot keep having this, oh, what's the big deal? What's the big deal that he obviously did this? Or what's the big deal that his daughter, is running around getting Chinese patents while they're working on a trade deal? Meanwhile, he's attacking Joe Biden on Twitter and calling people human scum. And what's the big deal? What's the big deal? Well, that's not something I would have said. And just no accountability for any of it. Like, oh, what? Oh, you liberal snowflakes, just get over. Like, again, this is what, after 8 years of Obama, who was he conducted himself impeccably. I don't agree with all his policies. In fact, I hate most of them, frankly. Corporate Democrat. Anyway, don't get me started on all that. But at least he acted like a sane person. And at least he had some semblance of being a caring, decent human being. And yes, I'm going to say it like that. You would never imagine Obama calling people human scum or enemy of the people, or just using every possible lever to just manipulate, coerce, control, dominate, constantly with no one in the party saying a word. What we're going to start seeing, and again, this frustration that I sometimes let out like I am now, is the kind of frustration that's let out around the world in these other places. And Jupiter in Sagittarius is going to be like, okay, finally, we're going to see some accountability. What do you think these impeachment hearings are going to be? To people like me, I'm like, yeah, turn it on. Let me see a parade of people for months come out and talk about what this guy's been doing. Yeah, I want to see it. I want to see it. And I want to see these Republicans who have been acting like, oh, nothing to see here. I want to hear every one of them defend it. Defend it now. Defend it now. Defend it now. Defend it now. And make them defend it. Keep defending it from now till the election. So you're not going to impeach him? Okay, then you defend why you didn't. This is what we're going to get. I still don't have faith that they're going to get a backbone because they'll find some way. But this is what we're going to get. This as an example, right? Yeah, someone said Sam wants to see it. Yeah, I want to see it. I want to see it. I want to see these people tell the truth. No, but I mean, this is the thing. This is what the Jupiter in Scorpio has been. Well, we don't know. We don't know. We don't know. Mueller, they gaslight Mueller. They gaslight everybody. Nothing is nothing. Mueller said 10 times of how he obstructed justice. Of course he did. You could see it in plain sight. He said he fired Comey to stop to take the heat off the investigation. That is obstruction of justice, 10 times worse than anything Nixon ever did. So again, we see this. We've all seen it. So Jupiter in Sagittarius, this kind of thing is going on. And so we're also going to, we'll see this stuff come out. And there'll be the hearings and whatnot as well. And again, maybe they won't impeach or whatever, but we will at least get to see it, and that will change the equation. Huge. You think it's not going to change the people and what people think, if not make him resign? Could also make him resign. I've never taken that off the table. The heat could get really quick, really big, really quick, and they might just say, okay. So anyway, interesting parallel, Jupiter Rahu in Sagittarius during Watergate 72-74 with Saturn hovering. Yes, I know, Shabari, I know. This is what I'm doing, the Jupiter Sagittarius web class. I'm going to talk about the history of this Jupiter in Sagittarius. So absolutely. And so this is just going over a few comments here. Trump supporters love the saying nothing burger. Yeah, well, I got a big old case of nothing burger too. We'll see what happens. So again, this is again, not just to be about that, but we're seeing the shift. Justice is related to Libra and Sagittarius. Very interesting, even that this vote on justice, or this vote on let me see, on opening the impeachment is going to happen on the day that Mercury, it'll happen on the day that Mercury turns retrograde. So even this Mercury, it's going to happen on Thursday. It's going to happen on Thursday the 28th. Or no, on Thursday the 1st. And that's when Mercury turns retrograde. Mercury turns retrograde in Scorpio, and then it's going to go back into Libra. So that's when they're opening up the vote. That's when they're having the vote. And so again, we're seeing all of this, and then what's going to happen as we go forward. I just did the video on November 2019. You should watch that. But then we're going to have Mars and Mercury in Libra, and this Libra Scorpio, where we bring a sense of justice into things perhaps around abuse of authority or whatnot. This is also going to be playing out. So there's going to be this emphasis the next few months on Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius. So we'll leave it at that. And people have any other questions here? Holly says, just looking for facts. Okay, there are so many facts, especially if you know how the government works. Honestly, and I'm just being very honest here, is that there was facts, especially around this investigation, impeachment. Facts are very simple. The facts are clear that numerous people now, we're in the probably close to a dozen, came out when they heard this call and said, this is insane. You are extorting the leader of another country, holding up military aid to have them investigate your political opponent. The guy that testified today, the lieutenant colonel, went right to his command, right to his boss, and said, this is crazy. Though, and a whistleblower put forth a complaint that the Justice Department buried. This is why I want to see Bill Barr in front of the impeachment inquiry. But again, Trump came out and admitted it. Again, you say you're looking for facts. What about the fact that he admitted to what he did? He admitted it. That's a fact. They released a transcript. It's a fact. It's been corroborated by now 15 people. None of them have a political stake in this. Whistleblower, people that are lifetime public servants that have worked for Republicans and Democrats. First of all, if you're looking for facts, don't listen to anything Trump says, because it's all propaganda. He smears everybody as a never Trumper, Dem, fake news. It's just, I hope if you're looking for facts, they're everywhere, especially if you know how the government works and how these things work. This is open and shut. And again, the only thing is a matter of whether or not you really will accept it. And again, I don't really know what else to say, but it's so clear that what happened. He even admitted it, and he said, and China, why don't you do it too? Just say this last thing about Trump. His downfall is his bravado. It's his ignorance, both of them. His incompetence, his ignorance, his bravado. What's gotten him through in life is, frankly, he's a bullshitter. He's a bullshit artist. And that gets you a lot. I talked about this a while ago. It can let you be a bombastic TV personality, even let you bluff and BS your way into land deals and real estate until you bankrupt companies, and then people won't lend you money anymore. Then you have to BS your way into other things. He's used to this double down, triple down, accuse the other person of the thing that you're accused of. It doesn't work in this case. We have facts and we have laws. I said this a while ago. The problem with him isn't, I have nothing against him. I don't know him. I couldn't care less about the person. He got out of his lane. He should have stayed a bombastic TV personality or something, but he wants to run for president. He wants to be president. And now you need to uphold the laws that affect all of us. And instead, what he's done is he's hijacked this office for his own power, his own profit, his own benefit. And he used the office to try to ensure that he would get elected the next time by asking another leader to investigate his political opponent if they wanted to get the taxpayer money that's supposed to go to them to defend themselves. That's just on the surface. These aren't disputable. So the problem with him is then he doubles down, triples down, because that's what he's always done. Oh, yes. Yeah, I told Ukraine to do it. Yeah, I told them to do it because I care about corruption. And you know what? China should also investigate Joe Biden. China, right now, investigate Joe Biden. He's basically saying, yeah, I committed the crime, and I'm going to commit another crime right in front of you. Somebody said, just because you're committing the crime in plain sight doesn't mean it isn't a crime. So again, this isn't disputable. So it feels so confusing now because we've been gaslit so much. This is exactly what I'm saying. Imagine if Obama would have done this. Imagine if Obama, all the crying Trump does about, imagine if Obama would have stood up in front of the cameras and said, yeah, we're investigating Trump because he's a con man and a cheat. Yeah, we're investigating him and his family. So what are you going to do about it? This is essentially what Trump has said. Yeah, I'm using the FBI to investigate Trump. What would the Republicans have said? Okay. Oh boy. Okay. So anyway, you know, I'd love to have you on the web class if you're interested, and it's going to show how this Jupiter and Sagittarius will influence you, affect you. I'm also going to talk about that sign of Sagittarius, that section of the sky, which is related to the galactic plane, and all of the mythology around that, the Mula Ardra axis, and the last several transits of Jupiter through this and how it really established justice and really restored justice, and what we can really expect. This, you know, I think will really help you. I'm sure you'll really understand this transit much better if you check that out. And so we'll leave it at that. And I appreciate everyone coming, and you all have a good one. Share this with others if you think they'll like it as well. And we'll talk soon.